I never expected that a quiet evening on the porch would change how I saw her forever. When my uncle's wife sat beside me and whispered, "You don't have to be so strong," I realized some truths are felt more in silence than in words. The night had settled gently around the old house, the kind of evening that seemed to hold its breath. The crickets were already singing in the tall grass, and somewhere down the road a dog barked once, then quieted again. I sat on the wooden steps of the porch, elbows on my knees, staring out at the soft stretch of fields beyond the yard. The boards beneath me were worn smooth from years of use, and they creaked faintly whenever I shifted my weight. It was the sort of silence that wasn't empty at all, but heavy, thick with unspoken thoughts I hadn't had the courage to voice out loud. I hadn't heard her footsteps at first. She moved lightly, with the quiet assurance of someone used to slipping into a room without needing to announce herself. When she appeared beside me, I didn't startle. It was more like I had been waiting without realizing it, and she had finally arrived. My aunt, graceful in a way that didn't need dressing up, eased herself onto the step beside me. She didn't say anything right away, and neither did I. The air between us carried the faintest hint of her perfume, something warm and floral, almost hidden beneath the fresh scent of the evening breeze. I became aware of her nearness in small, almost imperceptible ways, the way the wood shifted as she settled in, the gentle warmth radiating from her presence, the way her skirt brushed against my leg when she folded her hands neatly in her lap. The porch light above us glowed softly, its beam pulling moths into a slow, circling dance. That glow traced the outline of her profile, the curve of her cheek, the way a loose strand of hair had slipped forward across her shoulder. She made no effort to tuck it back. I found myself noticing details I usually ignored, the steady rhythm of her breathing, the stillness in her posture, the calm way she simply sat with me. Something about her silence felt deliberate. She wasn't here to fill the quiet with empty words. She was here to share it. And in that simple act, I felt the edge of my loneliness dull just slightly. Her presence beside me, so close I could feel the brush of her sleeve against my arm whenever either of us moved, became its own kind of reassurance. The night stretched on around us, patient and watchful. Neither of us had spoken yet, but already, I sensed that this porch, this small, unremarkable wooden step, was about to hold a moment I wouldn't forget. For a long while, neither of us spoke. The night seemed to hum around us, as though the world was content to give us space. I had always thought silence was heavy, almost unbearable, but sitting there beside her, I realized silence could feel like something else, something alive, something that pressed in gently until it urged you to open up. She was the first to break it. Her voice came softly, carrying no judgment, only curiosity. "You've been quiet lately," she said, her eyes still fixed on the dark line of trees at the edge of the field. "Are you holding up all right?" I gave the kind of answer I always gave. A half smile, a shrug. "Yeah, I'm fine." But even as the words left my mouth, I could feel her attention shift toward me. She didn't turn her whole body, not yet. Just her head, tilting slightly, her gaze catching mine in the glow of the porch light. There was a steadiness in her eyes, the kind that made it impossible to hide behind easy answers. "You don't have to tell me what you think I want to hear," she said gently. The way she said it, neither sharp nor pressing, just quietly insistent, made the smile on my face falter. I looked away, down at my hands resting loosely on my knees. The skin along the back of my neck prickled with the weight of her attention. She was waiting, not pushing, but her patience had its own gravity. Her hand shifted on her lap, a small movement, but enough to catch my eye. The edge of her knuckles brushed against mine as she adjusted her posture. It was nothing deliberate, at least not obviously so, but it sent a ripple through me all the same. The warmth of that accidental touch lingered, sparking in a place words couldn't reach. "I'm fine," I repeated, but my voice was softer this time, less certain. She leaned back slightly, her shoulders relaxing as though she had all the time in the world. "You know," she said, "it's not weakness to say when you're tired, or when something feels heavy. Everyone thinks they're supposed to carry it all alone." I didn't answer right away. I wasn't sure if I could. My throat tightened with words I hadn't formed yet, truths I'd been keeping locked away. Her presence, her gaze, her quiet persistence, they chipped away at the wall I carried around me. The porch light hummed faintly above us, the moths still circling, and in that small corner of the night, I realized she wasn't asking for explanations. She was simply offering me permission. Permission to be honest. Permission to not be fine. And though I hadn't spoken the words yet, I could feel the beginnings of them stirring inside me. Her words lingered in the air between us, soft but heavy, as if they had carved out space for truths I had never dared to say aloud. I felt my chest tighten. My instinct was to brush it off, to offer another practiced smile, but there was something in her expression that told me I didn't need to pretend. I drew in a slow breath. It just feels like, everyone expects me to have it figured out, I admitted quietly. Like I'm supposed to be steady no matter what. Strong. Reliable. But some days, my voice trailed off, and I let my eyes rest on the porch steps at my feet, ashamed of how small the words sounded once they were out in the open. She didn't rush to answer. Instead, she leaned a little closer, the soft fabric of her sleeve brushing against my arm. The simple contact steadied me, even as it sent a shiver down my skin. When I glanced at her, her gaze was fixed on me with a kind of attentiveness that felt rare, like she wasn't just listening, she was holding my words, keeping them safe. "You don't always have to be the strong one," she said. Her voice was low, steady, but threaded with something tender, something that reached deeper than sympathy. She let the words sit there, not dressing them up, not cushioning them, just truth, plain and simple. The night air carried a cool breeze across the porch, rustling the leaves at the edge of the yard. I felt it sweep against my face, but it was her touch that held me in place. She shifted slightly, and her fingers grazed my forearm where my sleeve ended. The touch was light, almost hesitant, as though she were testing whether I'd pull away. I didn't. The warmth of her skin through the thin fabric of my shirt startled me, but it also grounded me in a way I hadn't expected. I swallowed hard, suddenly aware of how close we were sitting. I had known her as family, as someone constant in my life, but tonight she seemed different, more real, more human, carrying her own weariness just beneath the surface. "I don't think anyone ever told you that it's okay to lean," she added, her thumb tracing an absent circle on my arm before she let her hand fall back to her lap. "But it is." Her words sank into me with the weight of something I'd been needing for far too long. I didn't know what to say, so I let the silence stretch, my chest rising and falling a little quicker than before. It wasn't only her words I felt, it was her nearness, her warmth, the unspoken promise in the simple act of her hand brushing mine. And in that moment, I realized she was giving me something rare, permission to unravel, without fear of being less in her eyes. After her words, silence returned, but it no longer felt like the same silence that had stretched between us at the start. This one was fuller, heavier, as though her voice had planted something in the air that neither of us wanted to disturb too quickly. I could hear the steady rhythm of crickets in the grass, the low hum of the porch light above, and beneath it all, the quiet, deliberate sound of her breathing. She didn't move away after touching my arm. If anything, she seemed content to remain near me, her presence both steadying and unsettling at the same time. My own thoughts had grown loud, too loud, spilling into places I hadn't let them wander before. I wasn't sure what unsettled me more, the relief of her understanding, or the unspoken tension that seemed to spark in the space where our shoulders almost touched. I let my eyes wander to the edge of the yard. The field stretched into shadow, the trees etched black against the sky. But no matter how I tried to ground myself in the view, I kept feeling the brush of her presence beside me. Her knees shifted slightly, the soft fabric of her skirt brushing my jeans, and though it could have been nothing more than chance, I couldn't shake the idea that it wasn't entirely accidental. She exhaled quietly, almost like a sigh, and leaned back against the wooden step. The movement caused her shoulder to press gently into mine. The contact was subtle, not forceful, but there was a choice in it. She didn't pull away. I stayed still, letting the warmth seep through me. The porch, the night, the air, all of it seemed to slow. It felt like standing at the edge of a word you're too afraid to say, waiting for someone else to say it first. I thought about speaking, about breaking the moment with some confession or reassurance, but my voice stuck in my throat. The silence itself was saying too much. The moths continued their restless circling around the porch light, casting flickering shadows across her face. I glanced sideways, careful, as though looking too openly would shatter whatever fragile thread held the moment together. Her profile was calm, almost serene, but her closeness betrayed something more. It was then I realized, sometimes silence holds more intimacy than words ever could. The shared press of her shoulder against mine, the soft brushing of her knee, the faint warmth radiating between us, none of it loud, none of it obvious, yet all of it speaking a truth we both felt. Neither of us reached further, neither of us confessed aloud, but we didn't need to. The quiet carried it for us. The night had cooled more quickly than I expected. A breeze slipped across the porch, brushing against my skin and carrying with it the earthy scent of damp soil from the fields. I noticed her shiver, so slight it could have gone unseen if I hadn't been paying attention. Her arms folded loosely across her chest, as though she were trying not to let on that the air had grown sharp. Without thinking too much about it, I reached behind me for the old blanket draped over the porch chair. It was soft from years of use, the edges frayed but still warm. I unfolded it and, with a quiet sort of hesitance, placed it gently around her shoulders. She turned her head toward me, surprise flickering in her eyes before it softened into something else, a smile that wasn't wide or showy, but small and knowing, the kind of smile that held warmth deeper than words. "Thank you," she murmured. Her voice was so quiet I might have missed it if I hadn't been so close. As she adjusted the blanket, she lifted a corner and, without pause, draped it across my side as well. The gesture was simple, natural, but it caught me off guard. Suddenly we were wrapped in the same space, a single shared cocoon of warmth. Her hand brushed against mine as she tucked the edge of the blanket closer. The touch was brief, accidental perhaps, yet it lingered in my chest far longer than it should have. Her fingers had been cool from the night air, but the way they lingered over mine left a heat that spread through me. We sat that way, side by side, the blanket covering our shoulders. The silence returned, but it was no longer awkward or tentative. It felt almost sacred, filled with the awareness of closeness we hadn't known before. I could hear the faint rasp of fabric whenever she shifted, the brush of her sleeve against me, the rhythm of her breath matching mine without either of us intending it. I stared out at the darkened yard, though my thoughts were caught on her presence beside me. The warmth of the blanket, the shared space, the subtle nearness of her body, it all blurred together, leaving me with a single, undeniable truth: I didn't want to move. Her shoulder brushed against mine again, deliberate this time, as though she was reminding me she hadn't forgotten the closeness either. And in that moment, with nothing but the blanket to bind us, I realized that sometimes kindness is not only in words spoken, but in the quiet ways we choose to stay close. The blanket had drawn us into a closeness I couldn't ignore. It wasn't just fabric keeping out the night air, it was the undeniable sense of being bound together, shoulder to shoulder, sharing the same quiet. Every small sound seemed amplified, the steady hum of insects in the grass, the creak of the porch beneath our weight, even the way her breath caught softly before she spoke again. "Sometimes I get tired too," she said suddenly, her voice a low murmur that seemed meant only for me. "People think I've always got it handled. That I don't need help. But the truth is," she hesitated, her fingers curling into the edge of the blanket, "the truth is I'm just as worn down as anyone else." The words startled me, not because they were dramatic, but because they were so honest. I turned my head, studying her in the shifting glow of the porch light. Her expression was calm, but her eyes betrayed something more fragile, a glimpse of vulnerability I had never seen in her before. I wanted to say something, anything, that would ease the weight she carried. But the words tangled inside me, heavy and unformed. Instead, I found myself simply watching her, caught in the quiet pull of the moment. Her eyes lifted to mine, holding them without flinching. The silence between us thickened, not empty, but alive with unspoken things neither of us dared to put into words. The space between us felt charged, as though even the smallest movement might shift the ground beneath our feet. The porch light flickered once, casting shadows across her face. For an instant, everything around us seemed to fade, leaving only her presence. The curve of her lips parted as if she wanted to say more, the faint rise and fall of her chest, the nearness of her leaning shoulder. I felt the pull of her closeness in my chest, a magnetic weight drawing me forward. My heart quickened, pressing hard against my ribs, and I knew that if I let myself speak, something irreversible might come out. But before I could move, she shifted. Not away, but closer. Her head lowered, resting softly against my shoulder. The touch was gentle, deliberate. I froze, breath shallow, overwhelmed by the warmth of her leaning trust. No words were exchanged. None were needed. In that quiet, suspended moment, with her head resting against me, I felt the confession we hadn't spoken, the one that pulsed just beneath the surface. It was there, in the hush of her breath on my chest, in the weight of her nearness, unspoken, but undeniable. Her head rested lightly against my shoulder, and I didn't dare move. The porch around us had grown quieter, the insects in the grass humming steadily as if marking time, the night breeze brushing past with cool fingers. But inside me, everything was loud, my heartbeat drumming hard against my ribs, my breath shallow, every sense sharpened by the weight of her leaning trust. She hadn't said anything more after laying her head against me. She didn't need to. The act itself spoke volumes, words neither of us had been brave enough to voice. I sat very still, afraid that even shifting too much would break the fragile thread of connection we had woven tonight. The blanket pulled close around us held in the warmth, but it was her closeness that truly settled me. The faint press of her cheek against my shoulder, the softness of her hair brushing my neck, the rhythm of her breath syncing almost unconsciously with mine, it all created a pocket of stillness that belonged only to us. I turned my head slightly, just enough to catch the crown of her hair in the edge of the porch light. She smelled faintly of lavender, the scent rising with each soft exhale. My chest ached with the strange mixture of comfort and longing, of wanting to freeze the moment even as I knew it couldn't last forever. We didn't speak. There were no confessions, no sudden declarations. Only silence, and yet it was enough. It felt as though the silence itself had been remade into something tender, something binding. A silence that said, I see you. I understand. I'm here. Time slipped by unnoticed. The moths still circled, the night deepened, but none of it touched us. All that mattered was the quiet weight of her leaning trust, and the knowledge that this porch, this moment, had changed something between us. Not loudly, not in ways anyone else might see, but in a way that mattered deeply to me. Eventually, she shifted just slightly, her head pressing a little more firmly into my shoulder, as though testing to see if I would hold steady. I did. My arm lifted almost instinctively, not to pull her closer, but to rest gently along the back of the step, an unspoken promise that I wasn't going anywhere. The night carried on, patient and unhurried. And though we never spoke of it, I knew what had passed between us wasn't fleeting. It was the kind of closeness that lingers, an intimacy born not from words, but from silence, from nearness, from the quiet courage of letting someone lean and being willing to hold them.